Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. I was the dumbest toddler ever. So when I was 5, I wanted some pretzels in the fridge on top. So I used the chair you see in a classroom in kindergarten. So when I got on top of the chair, and became to fall, and when I fell, I also dropped the entire bag of pretzels and every piece drop on the floor. And I panic. 5-year me. Oh my God. I gonna be in so much trouble. This is the worst ever. What should I do? What should I do? Ding. I know. I'll just poop on it. And put a not on note that said, this is not pretzels. It just poops so you wouldn't hurt me. PERCEFT. When my mom came back, she had the greatest disgust and angry face I've had seen, and that pee. When I realized that pooping isn't that best solution. End of story. Next story. Don't be surprised when you hear or read some weird shit about Belgium anytime soon. It might be about one of our kings from the past. But I'm talking about some political bullshit or an individual who couldn't take any more of this shit and went on a rampage. I know. This happens all the time all over the world. But I'm not sure how many of those stories reach us here. Apart from the recent racial thing. I don't want to minimalize facts about that story. I just find the racial discussion a relic from the past. We all know it's something that's still around and shouldn't be. But even the most die-hard racists have to admit globalism is a thing and it's not going away. Deal with it. If you're interested in a story right now, I am happy to share David's story with you. He never had any serious issues apart from the occasional toothache or lost friend. This lockdown has quite an impact on David. A quick recap on his situation. Wife. 3-year-old son. A job in IT with his first real employer. Been with the company for over 8 years. Recovering from some mental issues. When the government declared a state of lockdown, David had mixed feelings. He has always been quite an introvert, so he loved the idea of staying home all the time. But he dreaded the feeling of not being able to flee from work and family. Even if just for a weekend. Which has happened only once before. Those 2 days in Amsterdam were quite special. But that's a whole different story. Governments all over the world are turning the situation into either a joke or a twisted way to get elected again in the next couple of years. Experts on virology and anything else medical are yanking their bell as hard as they can. While people are listening less and less by the minute. David can only think, did I really overestimate the human race? What's going to happen next? Aliens announcing they are about to enslave us all? Or just that country X was actually responsible for releasing this pesky virus in this world? David did not wish for this. He never dreamed this year to be like this. It was supposed to be something futuristic. With flying cars and full meals in the form of one tiny pill. Stuff like that. It should not have been stuck in a house or apartment for several months with only TV, social media and in some cases family to entertain ourselves. David could never read anything without reading someone's opinion. Whose opinion it was? Honestly. Usually he had absolutely no idea. He could not be bothered to find out. All stories heard and seen are either black or white. Yin or yang. Day or night. One could guess this shows the duality of mankind. The one time a grey and nuanced story gets out, it is drowned out by news about some politician making some stupid observations or having a silly idea. Masks that cover the mouth and nose have been and still are quite a story in the country where David lives. He will use them when needed. But he's been told it's something to take away your fear, while merely reducing the risk. As long as abs x greater than 0, no one is completely safe. David does not stay safe for himself. His screensaver is a picture of his son. He gets reminded of his meaning of life a lot. All the time. He needs to be there for his family. The things he wants to teach his son. The places in the world he wants to see with his family. At the same time, he's thinking about what kind of world he has brought a beautiful little boy into. Is this world worth our time on it? Or are we not allowed to ask that kind of question? David is having a hard time concentrating on what brings food to the table. Music can calm the unholy beast in him. But there are times when even music is not enough to stay in control of one's own emotions. When he gets angry, it's just a verbal battle. It never gets physical and it doesn't turn into a war. I don't know about you, the reader, but if you ask me, it wouldn't surprise me if David has the potential of snapping for real. Killing his family to save them from this world. Going medieval on the world around him to then commit suicide with a sword. Inspired by a culture he has a lot of respect for. End of story. Next story. I got accused of watching porn on the bus. So, first of all, I'm 13 years old. Excuse my spelling. So, on September 2019, we were getting home from a field trip to Fairview. And as we were coming back, we decided we wanted to watch funny videos of my friend catching fish. And so our social studies teacher decided that he would just yell at us and accuse us of watching porn. So we just showed him the video that we were watching. And totally ignored it. Instead, he just decided to collect our phones and told us to go to sleep. A few days after this odd occurrence, my dad had asked me if I was watching porn on the bus ride home. And I told him that we weren't, which he believed. And still, nothing has been done to this day. Should I do anything about it? Or no? TDLR. My social studies teacher accused me of watching porn on a bus. End of story. Next story. I caught my ex-wife with my childhood friend. 100 comments share save hide report 97% upvoted. End of story. Next story. 20 years of me being a fool. I am a first-time poster. English is not my first language. Names were changed to protect identities. I was in high school when I first met Berenice. She had a bright smile and a cheerful attitude. But beneath that baby face and wide hips she was a thinker and a natural leader. That is what I admired of her the most. I was a timid and so it took me a couple of years to get to know her. She was popular among her classmates, many of which were mean girls who called me names. Nevertheless, she was kind with me and I managed to spend a lot of time with her talking about the big questions in life. Politics, science, philosophy, the future and whatnot. No other girl in that class could handle a conversation like that. I had fallen in love. Unbeknownst to me, Berenice had been longing for Simon, a good friend of mine. So the day I decided to confess to her, near the end of high school, it went bad. How bad? I was shaking in nervousness so much I could barely force myself to walk up to her. And as soon as I started talking, her friends came nearby. I must have been a traumatic experience because all I can remember after that is Berenice laughing so hard at me while I run away from her. Eventually Simon and Berenice began to hang out, but there was no chemistry and their relation did not last long. I spent the last days of high school watching from the shadows and wanting to forget. Life went on and I really never grew up to be confident. I did meet other girls, but my thoughts went back to Berenice every once in a while. especially whenever I got rejected or was too afraid to confess. Some years later I was running late for university, so I took an alternate route. That is when she and I bumped into each other during a morning commute. We talked as if nothing had ever happened, and I felt a big relief. No. I felt distilled joy. I was so happy I forgot to ask her new phone number. So I adjusted my commute in the hopes to see her again. But that would not happen for 5 years. Many stories later, when I was starting my PhD, I was sure that I would not see her ever again. But then on a fateful day that happened. It was by accident just like before. But this time it was different. She was carrying a child in her arms. The dad was nowhere to be seen. So we went to have a great time at a nearby park, and we laughed like children ourselves till the afternoon. I could not let her go again, so I asked her for a date. Alas, she rejected me, arguing that she now knew what a men seeking in her and wanted to stay friends. I just thanked for her time and went on with my life. By this time social media was booming. And so we got to chat every now and then. One day she admitted feeling guilty for the way she rejected me in high school. Just 10 years after the fact. And she actually asked me for a date. Berenice had enough of children movies, so we went to see an R-rated comedy. I could feel some tension between she and I during the projection. Especially during the sex scenes. But I refrained from anything because of what she told me before. After that she was beaming with joy, and she said she wanted to go out with me once more. I agreed to go to a restaurant next time, and truth be told it was funnier and more exciting. After that day we started to talk about our sex lives. How she cheated on her partners and other NSFW stuff. But she also tell me every now and then how she really liked me. So I was confused and had no idea where our relation was heading. Internally I had decided that I would try again next time. But that next time would not came to be. I got stood up by her 3 times. Always with different excuses, and she always apologized profoundly. I could not understand this mix of signals, so I started dating another woman. Months later, when the relation with this woman was over, she told me she would go after me next. But that did not happen either. I ended up marrying a wonderful woman. That's another story. And having a child of my own. I did not want my wife to think that I would be a cheater. So I stopped talking to Berenice and other girlfriends by my own decision. Turns out this is not a good idea, because now she accuses me of infidelity as soon as I talk to some other woman. Another 10 years has passed by when I noticed that Berenice was stalking my social media profile. It started with a like in an old photo. I asked about it, and she told me how she was explaining high school to her child. Apparently I was being used as an example of a friend and a very successful man. Then she asked if we could hang out once more. At this point I am not looking for love anymore. I just don't want to die with the remorse of not having lived a life. So I carefully set up a date, and suddenly the night before I am feeling nervous and excited, just like 20 years ago. I knew in my heart that she would not show up and instead would spend the day with her newest boyfriend. That morning she did not even answer my texts. Nevertheless I went there all by myself. Sat for an hour. Remembered how it has been up until now. Dropped a tear. And went on my way. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.